So how you been? First of all, let's start with that because it's been a while since, you obviously came back and was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame, which was a special day. I mean, what was that like for you?
It was amazing. It was one of those moments that that much like tonight, much like today, that you want to soak it all in. But then when it's over, it's like it still doesn't seem real. It doesn't. It was just an amazing experience, and what an honor. Not only what took place this summer, but to be back. I think we all, and I see some of my teammates, and which I'm thankful these guys are here because this is something we collectively share together. Just so happens quarterbacks get more attention and than they deserve, and they probably get a little more blame than they deserve, but I had to throw that in there. But it's just, I think it says a lot about, I know it says a lot about what we accomplished together. And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the things that I've done as an individual, but I don't dwell on that. I'm more proud of the things we've done collectively. It's no fun to celebrate by yourself. And I think all the guys I played with, the fans who watched over the years, they know that I enjoy playing, and I enjoy doing it with my teammates more than anything. And so as much as I'm honored to be here, have my jersey retired, to be in the Hall of Fame, I'm probably more proud of the fact that we had some good years together.
When Ron Wolf made the trade to bring you, first of all, who told you? Who told you you're going to Green Bay?
Actually, I got two calls. June Jones called me first. He was the quarterback coach at Atlanta at the time. Later became the head coach and then went on to University of Hawaii. Great guy. He called me first and said, Brett, I want to wish you well. You were just traded to Green Bay. Enjoyed working with you. It was a brief phone call, and then hung up, and Ron Wolf called right after.
Ron Wolf had said at one point in time when he drafted Donald Driver, he said, Donald, you make this team, you're going to make my draft, you'll make me look good. Ron told me that when he talked to you, he didn't have to tell you that, but he knew if you just were who you were, you could make him look good. Did you ever expect your career to go from that to this?
Oh, I don't know if anybody could have, this is better than book material, I was pretty confident. I was also pretty naive and dumb in a smart way, if that makes any sense. I thought I was good. I thought I could play, but I didn't realize the odds were against me, and that was a good thing. The older I got, the wiser I got, the less I relied on just pure playing and relied on, I don't know if we got a chance to beat this team, and thought that way rather than bring them on. And bring them on was pretty good. When you overanalyze things, for me it was not good. So no, I didn't. I always thought I'd play pro football or baseball. That was a given. Thank goodness I did, because I had nothing to fall back on. Nothing. I was going to be a teacher and a coach only because my mother and father were a teacher and a coach, not because I would have been a good one, either teacher or a coach. But that's what I was going to do. And I'm sure a lot of guys say the same thing, and there's only a small percentage that do that actually get to fulfill their dreams. And so when I got drafted, I thought, why'd they draft me in the second round? I should have been a first-round pick. Not for the money. I mean, they make a lot more money today than they did back then, but it was good money. I thought, that's gravy. I'm the best player in this draft. But that's the way I thought. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't think I could have ever dreamed of how it's really unfolded.
Now, it's true that when you were playing baseball, Deanna used to catch you, used to heat up. So she's probably pretty glad you went to football, right?
She handled she was pretty tough. She could, yeah, I considered it a challenge to try to heat her up, but she could catch it, you know. I thought all girls caught like that. I didn't know the difference, but they obviously don't.
It's ironic because when your dad used to do the show with us, we were talking always about the high school days and when he coached, and he said, I just wouldn't let Brett throw the ball. You were running wings and you were running eyes. And so when did you realize, I can throw this thing? Just let me air it out, Dad.
When I first put one in my hand, I could throw it. And did he ever give you a reason why he didn't throw it? I never
No, not really.
got that.
You know, it was funny because your dad always talked about how he tried to teach you it was about the team and not about you.
Yeah.
And you wanted to throw it.
I still wanted to throw it. Yeah.
But is that where you get it? Is that where because your dad was such a root for you? Is that where you get it?
Yeah, and there's no doubt that obviously he didn't teach me the passing game, but the team was more important. That was obvious, and I think in some ways, and this may have happened for other people who've had a dad who's coached them. I think in some ways he didn't show favoritism because he didn't want people to think that. And I don't know this for certain, but I think that he wanted to keep the playing field even, so to speak. But really, it was skewed more towards everyone else and less towards me because I could throw the ball. It wasn't like he was doing something that we couldn't do. You know, but again, I don't know that for certain. But yeah, he did teach me in a roundabout way toughness. And I think back to those times, and someone would say, "Give me an example," and I would say, I can remember being hurt. I thought really bad, and guys like, "You okay?" And I'd look over there, and my dad was like on the sidelines, like, "Get your..." I'm hurt here, Dad. So that's how he taught me toughness. Like, if you lay down on the field, I'm never coming to get you. So, you know, there was times where I really thought I was hurt. And that's the thing is, like, as players, you really don't know what you can do or withstand. And I think all the guys could speak on this until you actually do it. You know, I didn't know I could play with a broken thumb. If you'd have told me prior to breaking my thumb that, "Hey, Brett, you're going to break your thumb, and I think you're going to do well after that." Man, what have you been drinking? But it's true. So, you know, we can withstand a lot, you know, and I think, in a roundabout way, my dad was kind of like, I just think he, you know, I mean, I don't think it was a planned.
Right.
I'm just going to disregard the bone sticking out of his skin today and teach him toughness. I don't think it was like that.
But you told me the first time we met, we sat down to an interview, and you talked about your dad, and you said, "Bill, look how I got my job." And you said part of it was fear. And I said, "Why?" And you said, "Don went down, and I've never looked back." And is that something that drove you as well? Is that you just never wanted to lose that job? You always wanted to be that competitor out there?
It drove me all the time. And our youngest daughter is 16. She plays volleyball. And, you know, I often, like probably we all do as parents, you try to think of what to say to your kids and how to motivate them or how to console them. You know, usually we put our foot in our mouth first. And so I'm always talking to her about being motivated and self-discipline, because for me, even when I became the starter, say in college, I was very confident, but also in some ways I was, you know, I always felt like I was looking over my shoulder, and right or wrong, that's the way I approach things. I don't know why it was that way, but every time I came back for training camp, I felt like they were trying to replace me. Someone was trying to replace me. And I think we should all be motivated regardless of if you're trying to reach a certain point or if you have reached that certain point. Too many times guys get to a point where they're comfortable and they coast, and you find that you coast for a short time and then someone else takes your place. That's when you really have to up your work ethic and discipline. And all the guys that are here today that I play with, we had that, and that's why you're at the pinnacle. And so for me, that it was a driving force for me. That remember how you took Don's spot. It could easily happen to you. And no matter what you've done, how successful you've been, you can still be replaced, whether it be injury or just by choice or whatever. It can happen. So don't ever forget that.
Talking about your teammates, everybody's got a Brett Favre story. Everybody's got something funny that he did, some prank that he pulled. What is the best prank you ever pulled? Aaron was telling one this week where he had everybody sign his helmet and he had to take it out.
That was a good one. That was a really good one.
And then he begged Red Batty because Red was going to wipe the helmet.
Yeah.
I was like, no,
said,
there's some
I
good
can't
things.
go down there with everyone signing, including me signing my own helmet. And Red said, I'm sorry, we just can't take it off. And, that was awesome. Boy, best one that we could actually tell.
This is like Vegas right now. Anything that goes on in here can stay in here.
Oh, I don't know what we had. What's that?
A lot of stink bombs.
Well, I'll tell you. That brings up one, and I know John Madden's not here, and Lee Rimmel has passed away, so he can't. But Jeff Blum, who probably is not here, but lives here in town, and you know Jeff, used to be the head PR director. Mark Schiefelbein, Lee Rimmel, who's now passed. I almost killed John Madden, but I'll tell you the story. So we're out playing in a playoff game in San Francisco. John Madden and Summerall are doing the game. They had done so many of my games that we never talked football. We ended up talking about whatever, and I think John enjoyed that more than anything else. Well, I had these little glass like stink bombs. They god awful smell, terrible. You just step on them and let them do their work. So I had this bright idea that I go in the day before the game. We go out to California, and we're in the hotel, and Lee Rimmel had a tendency he'd fall asleep as we were talking. He'd heard it so many times, he's fallen asleep. So I was really going to try to just kind of arouse him and kind of get mad in those guys. Like, I wanted to see how long they would actually go before they said, something stinks in here. Just see, it's one of those things. It's like, I'm just going to see how long they just play it like they don't smell nothing. So we're sitting there talking about whatever, and I just kind of pull it out of my pocket, and like Lee sitting there, and Madden and Summerall, and all the rest of the guys, and I just dropped this up under the table, and like 30 seconds later, it's rotten eggs are everywhere, and it's getting uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, how long are they going to, and all of a sudden John Madden starts pulling on his collar, and he starts choking. I swear to God, he starts choking. He turns red. He's like, you could tell he was having an allergic reaction. And he's doing like this. And I'm thinking, I just killed him. Before the game, I just killed John Madden because of a stink bomb. And so obviously the meeting was over, and I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to get arrested? Or I didn't mean to do it. It was just a joke. Turns out he did have an allergic reaction. I guess it was to sulfur or something like that. He should have told me that prior. But every time, maybe that's why Madden loves me so much. I don't know. It's like, I'm going to send him one in the mail or something. But every time he did a game after that, he was like, hey, no stink bombs, right? No.
You like how Frank Caliendo does Madden and then has Madden talking about you all the time?
I do, but I don't know if Madden likes that. Now, if Frank hears this story,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all everywhere.
John will really be mad at me.
We were talking backstage because you played in quite a lot of weather games. You're going to have some weather today. I've always told people it's not the NFC Championship game that was up here that was the coldest. It was that couple of weeks prior in Chicago. We were talking about that. That's the coldest you've ever, because I remember I couldn't breathe walking from the car into the stadium. And you said it was the worst you've ever played in.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. You know, and you're right, we did talk about it. That was my last year in Green Bay. We went 13-3. 2 of our losses were to Chicago. They went 3-13. Obviously, they beat us here, and then we played right around Christmas at their place. They had nothing to play for, and that's usually the scariest time to play a team, especially a Bear-Packer rivalry, or really within our division. And I remember waking up, Deanna and the girls were back up here. They didn't go down. I woke up that morning, and you know, you play long enough to kind of go through all this evolution. There was a time, and I don't know, let's say my first year through maybe first 12 years, where I actually would watch the Weather Channel and was hoping for a blizzard. I was the worse the conditions, the better. And obviously I thrived in those type of conditions. Statistically, you know, maybe not as much, but we won those games. And I was like, yeah, come on, bring it on. The latter part of my career, and I didn't say this while I was playing, but the latter part of my career, I watched the Weather Channel, and I was like, how about 60 and balmy? You know, just a cold front coming through. I was like, oh, my blood just got thin or something. I don't know. I just, it wasn't the same. Well, this is one of those games. They were talking about maybe later in the day. Well, it came through when I woke up. I looked out the window, and there was a flag. I'll never forget the flag. It wasn't doing this. It was that. And every once in a while, you see something fly across the street. And I wonder what that was. And then it would get cloudy, and then like a few snowflakes, and then it would just be bright sunny. And I called Deanna on the way to the stadium, and I said, Deanna, I don't think I'm going to complete a pass today. She said, why? I said, this is horrible. And I think I completed 3. And, you know, we talked about it backstage. The first third down, I'm in a shotgun, and the ball goes, it comes right here, and right before I go to grab it, it goes over my head. I jump on it. So does the rest of the Bears. And they're talking a bunch of smack, and all I'm thinking about is hot shower, hot shower. Even with you guys with me, hot shower. We punt the next play. The punter drops the ball to hit his foot, and it blows over there, and they get it. And it was bad. It went from bad to worse until we got in the locker room, and we go, I'm thinking hot shower, no hot water. So I went all the way back without a shower, but I didn't break a sweat anyway, so it didn't matter.
With all the games that you've played at Lambeau, is there one or two that just specifically stick out to you?
As far as weather,
well, not necessarily weather, just the games, the way you played them, whether you played, you know, they talk about the zone, you play in a zone, or a game that you just enjoyed. Because everybody speaking of weather, talks about the snow globe game against Seattle, and you and Donald Driver out there throwing snowballs at one another, and you're just having a blast. Is it a game like that sticks in your memory, or is it something personal that sticks in your memory, or is it a team that sticks in your memory?
Boy, you know, I played in a lot of games, but I really, for me, and I think everyone's different, I think about more, and this sounds crazy, I think about more times where we were at TV timeouts. We were sitting there talking, and of course, it was always the linemen that seemed to, they'd be arguing. I mean, we'd be telling jokes, or they were coming up with code words for the next play. None of that ever worked anyway. But I just remember those moments, and one in particular, I think I said we were going to go on a hard count, and I may have said it a little different. Ross Verba, remember Marco? He jumps after we had TV timeouts. You would think would give you time to, all right, look, guys, here's what we're going to do. And it would, but there would be always someone who would screw it up. And Ross Verba screwed this one up, and one of the guys, Marco or somebody, Frank, somebody said something to him, and they're fighting, and I mean, it was awesome.
It was awesome.
I remember those type of moments more than I do going for 7 for 7 on a drive or something like that. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. For me, it's not really the individual stuff. It's that the group stuff that. I was always looking for someone to grab and celebrate with. It just wasn't no fun. So win or lose, those memories are really what I think about the most.
Is that what you miss the most? The guys,
Absolutely.
the locker room, Red
Absolutely.
Batty, everybody?
Absolutely. Not necessarily the games, but plane rides, bus rides, TV timeouts, driving down to practice together, picking on coaches. We just had a lot of non-football related, it's football related, but not game related fun.
What about Mike Holmgren? Because they say Mike had obviously we saw a temper, but at times you guys like to tweak him and get him mad.
You had to kind of know when to tweak him.
Right.
I remember my grandmother one time saying, "Oh, he seems like such a nice man." It's like, yeah, he can be. He also could be, some of the guys called him Sybil because he had so many personalities. But one thing's for certain, when he had his assistant, Gary Reynolds, come get you and said, "Hey, Mike wants to see you up in the office," it wasn't good. Unfortunately, me, Frank, and Chewy had our share of visits to that. But it took me about the second time when his office door would be open and you walked in and he would be doing something behind his desk and he had his glasses down like right here on his nose and he'd look up and he'd go, sit his glasses down. And he had a remote control, which he just kind of did that and the door would go,
like the Wizard of Oz.
You're not going anywhere. But he was a heck of a coach. And yeah, he was tough, but he was a perfectionist at a time when I really didn't know what that necessarily meant. But when he said, "I want to come back at 14 yards," it meant I wanted it 14 yards. And as we got better, you start realizing, at first you're like, "Oh, why is he so picky?" But there's a reason. And for him, I give him a lot of credit because he went from coaching Joe Montana and Steve Young to pretty good, almost perfect style quarterbacks to me. And he'd ask me, "Why did you make that throw, Brett?" And I said, "Because I can."
I think you did pretty well, though.
Yeah.
It was funny. When Brian Noble and I worked together, you came up one time with us, and Brian said when Brian was ending his career, he said, "Man, I used to beg you to study." And you were so good, he said you knew it was going to be good because you didn't even have to study. You just go out and do it and clap your hands and walk back behind the line of scrimmage and let the next guy go, and you were good. At what point, because you told me later in your career, you said, "I study a lot more." At what point in your career did you flip and say, "I can be either at this level or this level if I take it and kind of envelop and put my arms around everything"?
I would say 13, 14 years into it is when I really looked at it more. I guess the best way to explain it is I trusted my ability less and relied more on the mental side of it. Probably not the wisest of things when it comes to me. I played 20 years and even I never knew what to expect. And I don't know if many players can say, "I know what to expect today." But you kind of know what you're getting with Aaron Rodgers. I never was as good as him. I could throw it. I could throw it with anybody. But just from a man, everything looks so good the way he does it. Everything with Joe Montana just looked good. Steve Young. Brady, I wasn't that good. I was better at, all right, you do this, you do that. And then they say, well, the other guys, what do we do? And I'm like, who cares? We'll work this side of the field. And if that doesn't work, I'll roll around over there. I mean, that's the way I so when I started studying, it was like, I'm kind of putting pressure on myself to do it a certain way, and I didn't like that, really. It goes back to like what Holmgren would say, well, what Ty Detmer, if he were here, he could do it really well. He said when Brett answered with, well, it was not good. Yeah. Holmgren, what are you looking at here? I said, I don't know, Mike. And then, the next play, it was like, I want to chew. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but I want to chew you're really, really bad because there's no way on earth you should have ever thrown that ball. There's 5 guys around our guy, and not one of them touch it, but our guy. So I don't want you to do that, but good throw. Good throw. That's kind of my career. I mean,
You mentioned Aaron. Was sitting at home and watching and checking out football because you never watch it the same once you played it. You've experienced it. Do you like watching Aaron Rodgers play?
He's almost too good. I mean, with that all due respect, it's like, crap, why don't he make a mistake every once in a while? I mean, all my good records are going to be taken, and all my bad ones I'm going to keep. My goodness. Throw 4 picks in a game, would you? Or 6. I tried that one time, too. 4 of them were not my fault. No, when I watch him, he's good. He's good, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, he's good. To me, really a great quarterback, you really know if a guy is great when he can carry his team when the rest of the team's just okay. And they lose guys, they plug guys in, but yet they still win. They're still prolific. It's like Carolina. And I know how important football is here in Green Bay, and a couple of losses, panic can set in. But really, in all honesty, as long as you have 12 at quarterback and games yet to play, you got a chance. And three losses, I mean, you saw it in Carolina. He single-handedly almost brought him back and really should have. So, I mean, the guy's really good. He really is good. He makes a lot of plays with his feet, makes tons of plays with his arm, and just from a leadership standpoint, he's got it all.
I asked you this over the summer last year, and for those that didn't get a chance to hear it when we had you on the program, I never wanted to speak for your dad because everybody always said, well, would Brett have left if your dad was still alive? And I said, I'm not going to answer that. That was always up to you and what your dad might have thought. But I asked you that, and you had a really interesting answer where you said, you might have still left, but Dad still would have stayed and did the show.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. You can go off and do what you want to do, but I'm staying, without a doubt. My dad was real simple in some ways and very complicated in others, and I don't know necessarily how to explain that, but he knew we had a good thing going here, and we did, but it's all worked out now. It's unfortunate how things worked out, including losing my dad, but in the end, it's all worked out.
When you lost your dad, we got the call and we broke the story, and then I remember talking to Jeff Blum at the time, and he said, yeah, I think Brett's going to play. And I said, because he called me and asked me about it because we were the one that first announced it, but I said, you know what? And you said it too. That's probably what your dad would have wanted. He said, don't worry about me. I'll be okay. Just you got to go do what you got to do. How hard was that of a decision for you to go and play?
The decision was easy. The playing part was hard. And I think one of the hardest things that I did was speak to the team the night before, which no one asked me to do that. But I wanted to, more or less, I mean, you know, that was a moment that I hope no one has to go through. But it was a special moment that we spent together collectively as a team and coaches. And I can't even remember what I said, but boy, we were not going to lose. I can assure you of that, regardless of how I played. And I more or less said, hey, I couldn't tell you what I sort of know who we're playing. I mean, I was in a fog. And you go through a game plan situation all week. Wednesdays is base and goal line, and Thursdays short yardage, and, you know, reds, whatever. You do all this preparation, and I'd forgotten it. And what you have to think back, I mean, that game was important because we still had a shot for the playoffs, but we needed to win that game. And we needed, if you remember, Minnesota to lose, which Arizona beat them on a we even brought the kid up here like the next week, you know.
Yeah, Poole made the catch.
So if you think back, those games for us were vital that we win and still get help. So it was really important. So I didn't want to just play to honor my dad. I wanted to play good. So that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to begin with, but just in that situation to perform and not let your teammates down. And that's really what I didn't want to do. I didn't want guys to say, well, I mean, what do you expect, you know? He lost his dad. I wanted to, you know, and my dad would have wanted the same thing. He would have wanted me to play, but play well. And the guys were, I mean, that is what I think about was not my performance. It was the performance of the guys around me, because every man, we got your back. And you know, people say that sometimes, but I knew we were not going to lose this game. And I could just throw like a grenade up, and we were going to get it. They were not going to get it.
Did Donald Driver tell you that he pulled everybody together and said, whatever's in the air, we got it?
No, he didn't, but
yeah.
it was obvious. Yeah. It was obvious from every man. I mean, that was a special night for a lot of reasons. It was tough, but in a strange sort of way, I have fond memories of that night.
What is the biggest misnomer about you? You hear so much in the media, and guys will say Brett does this or thinks that, or through everything that's gone on, what's the biggest misnomer?
I don't know. I actually don't listen to a lot of, no offense, I don't listen. I learned a long time ago, if you're willing to listen to the good, you better be willing to listen to the bad. But, you know, they go hand in hand. But I think for me, I really don't know what people think. I know this. Some people like me, some people don't. I think more people like me than don't. But not everybody likes. Thank you. I say that not to get an applause, but I think I know that based on the things that's happened and stuff, not everyone is going to be a fan, and others will always be a fan. That I get, but I would like to think, you know, we always kind of have what we think of ourselves, other people see maybe differently. I'd like to think that the guys who played with me and knew me would speak volumes on the type of player. I mean, no one knows you like your teammates, and you can fake it to the public, but you can't fake it to those guys. They know if you're in it for you or stats or money. Look, we all wanted to make a lot of money, and the guys I played with were thankful, and we all wanted more, don't get me wrong, but we all felt like, and that's why we were good, is because we kind of looked at it as like, can you believe they pay us for this too? You know, we'll take it, but this is awesome. And for me, you know, I would, if people out there think that because of what's happened, that I was in it for I wanted attention. Believe me, I didn't want attention. I could have found better ways to get it. Trust me. I really love to play, and I really love to play with these guys. And I would think that whatever perception that people have had based on what's happened is wrong, because these guys would speak volumes to that. Again, they may be saying, "Oh, I don't know, Brett," but you kind of know where you stand with your teammates. And to me, that was always so important. Again, going back to being a quarterback, linemen sometimes they're like, "Crap, what about us?" You didn't get touched yesterday, and there's a reason for that. I wanted to be on the same wavelength as all those guys, and to me, that was most important.
When you won the Super Bowl, and I've said this time and again, we talked about this, I said, boy, Brett running across the field, helmet held high, that's the image everybody remembers. But you bring in Reggie, who really kind of solidified that defense. But when you go through that defense, you think of Reggie and Santana and Sean and Gilbert and Leroy in the backfield. You guys were phenomenal. I mean, when you think about the talent that was assembled on that team. Yeah, with all the talent. So getting as much credit as you do for returning the title to Titletown, at one point in that game, you saw Reggie take it over, and they said he was kind of that quarterback guy. He had that mentality. Who had more of the mentality of Brett Favre? Was it Brett Favre or was it Reggie White? Because they said Reggie White became Brett Favre, and he said, "I'm going to go win this game."
I wouldn't bet against Reggie ever. I mean, that guy was just when you thought maybe they're blocking him today, or maybe they were thinking that. Because more than the Super Bowl, really, I think about Reggie, how dominating he was, and some may remember this. We played Denver. I think it was a Monday night game in Green Bay. It may have been a Sunday night game. And Reggie had like 3 sacks in a row on Elway. And we ended up winning a game, and we needed that. And I just remember our crowd, Reggie. And you just could, as it got louder and louder, I was just thinking, I wonder what it's like to be Elway right now. And then boom, sack, boom. But he had that presence about him. But you're right, our defense, man, I can remember we played in St. Louis, and I think it was the year we won the Super Bowl. And we absolutely stunk. And I remember Doug Evans, I think he got a pick right, was it second quarter or second half, that really made the difference for us. Because I remember Doug's pick, and I remember one other thing. Well, I should say 3. We absolutely stunk on offense. And we came in at halftime, and Holmgren said, he looked over at Sherm Lewis, who was offense coordinator, and he said, he had like his play sheet, and he said, "Sherm, you call the," I'm not going to tell you what he said, "you call the plays.
It was an angry
Mine ain't
quote.
working." Sherm, "Oh, okay, buddy, yeah, I'll go." We played a little better the second half, because what I loved about Sherm, he was like, we'll call that one. But our defense is really what, in order to win it all, there's going to be those times, it's an old cliche, but it's true. You're going to be off, and the good teams, someone else is going to be on. And our defense really was always on. It's just that our offense most of the time scored enough points that I don't want to say overshadowed them, but I do remember that game, and I loved watching our defense. There was more than Reggie, but we just had those good teams. They just sometimes defense can be boring, but there was something about it, our defense, that was fun to watch.
I was going to ask you, because when you go to the sidelines, you get all the printouts where everybody is. You get a chance to look at it. Did you like to
the latter part of my career, and you'll see like Peyton and a lot of the older guys, they go down, now they got iPads. They probably playing 4-deck solitaire, which I like to play. It'd be nice in a long game, boring game. But early in my career, I wanted to watch. And that goes back to what I was talking, latter part of my career, I was like, no, maybe, I was overanalyzing. Just throw the paper down and go up and watch. But watching, I love to watch our defense.
We are less than a year away from you going into the Hall of Fame. I know the name just came out. He's one of the semifinalists to go into the Hall of Fame. But you, my friend, are going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Have you thought about that yet? I mean, when you see the name Brett Favre and with those other names that are on that list, I mean, and you head the class, man.
I have, but I haven't. And this may sound strange, but as honored as I am to be here in July, and potentially the NFL Hall of Fame, it's stressful. And what I mean by that, for the guys that are sitting here that I played with, say you're playing in a Super Bowl or a big game, and everyone wants tickets. It's stressful. Am I right? Hey, man, Santana, I need 4 tickets. You know, we tight now. We went to high school together. I'm your cousin, too. 4 tickets. And I'll even let you pay for them, Santana. You know what you're like, oh, my gosh. And then occasionally you want to help some people out. And some you're like, oh, I hadn't heard from that guy in 30 years. It's stressful. And so I go, and Ron gets inducted this past summer, and Bus and I flew up just for the day. And it was like 95 degrees. And he's the first one to talk. And, you know, people who know Ron, he's a man of very few words. And so I was talking to him over at the hotel, which there was no security. There was just people coming out of everywhere wanting autographs, and, you know, and every time someone, oh, hey, how you doing, you know? And Ron says, don't worry, I'll be 10 minutes and you can be out of here. And he was the first one up there. And in 10 minutes, he was done. Me and Bus jumped on a plane. And the scary thing, I got back to Mississippi, walked in, and the third guy was talking. And there was like 3 more to go. And I was like, could you imagine being that last guy?
Your biggest day, and everybody's snoozing.
Yeah, let me go first, and then all of a sudden, hey, I gotta run, Bill, but I'll be back.
So how long will your speech be? You going to remember that from Ron Wolf? Just say it, get in and get out? Would you rather go last or first?
I would rather go first because you can always take a bathroom break. I mean, they can't stop you. And there's no law that says you can't take a 3-hour bathroom break. Right? I don't know. I think that they try to keep it within 20 minutes or something. But this summer it took a lot longer because I wanted to thank everyone. And I'm sure I left some people off, but I wanted to thank everyone. It wasn't so much about a speech, but it was about the people. You know, I spent a lot of years here, and there's a lot of people who were important to me, and I wanted to acknowledge them, so that took a while.
You've got family. Everybody's here with you today, and they're going to be over there tonight. We talked a lot about your dad, but I want to talk about Bonita, who has been kind of the rock. And, Irv used to talk so glowingly about the family and about everybody and the support that you got. So tonight, when the facade reads number 4, forever, what is that going to? What is the thought that starts to go through your head?
You know, I've thought about that. Really, last night was the first time I thought about it, and Deanna and I were in the room, and I was like, man, that's pretty awesome. And I never really talk about it. No one wants to hear what around at my house what I did, and I don't walk around saying, hey, that was pretty good. No one cares. Because 2 nights ago, I'm taking out the trash, and I just remember, it's funny how you think about things at an awkward time. I was carrying the trash out, and I was like, I'm getting ready to have my jersey retired. Here I am taking out the trash. Oh, well. But it's really, I guess the point in all that is it's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool. Because I dreamed, believe me, I was a daydreamer. You can ask my mom. When work was involved, I was nowhere to be found. Like Saturday morning was our to-do list, and somehow I'd go missing, and I'd be daydreaming about running out for the Saints or the Cowboys, or, playing in a Super Bowl or something. But I never dreamed of the unveiling of my jersey. I never dreamed of Hall of Fame. Granted, that's awesome. I dreamed of playing. And so when I tell people this, and it's so true, all the dreams, and very few people could probably say this, the dreams that I had as a kid, and we all have wonderful dreams, that I'm going to be this and be that. Mine have come true and then some. And it's kind of like, I didn't think about that, That's pretty amazing. I just thought about playing and what that would be like. All the other stuff kind of happened. And I'm truly honored by it, but it's like, to me, when I was done playing, people say, oh, you nervous that Peyton's got 3 yards to break your record? I'm like, no. Because what I did, who I did it with, how much fun we had is enough. But to look up there and to be one of a handful, to have your jersey retired in the most historic of franchises in all of sports, the Yankees maybe could rival that. You think about the great players that have played here. Man, it's endless. The Hall of Fame here in Green Bay is... So when I think about it, I think about that and how much of an honor it is, first of all, to play in a Packer uniform. That is quite an honor. But to be enshrined and have my jersey retired with the greatest of all time is quite an honor.
You had said that not all people like you. Many people do. The people that are here today, I believe, do, obviously. So for those that won't be there tonight, I'll give you the floor for a couple of minutes because I know we got to get going, but whatever you want to say to them.
Well, there's not much that I can say that I haven't said, but I'll kind of keep it lighthearted. I think about when I came here as a Viking and what that was like. And I only say this, and I said this in July a little bit. I wanted to beat the Packers, don't get me wrong. And, I love my time here, but for a lot of reasons, I wanted to win. First of all, I'm a competitor. And regardless of who I'm playing with, I want to win. But I wanted to win. But the closer I got to Lambeau, the tougher it got. And I was like, this was so much easier when I drove my truck down this road. And everyone was like, yeah. Well, they were going, they were giving me number one, but it was a different one. And I was like, oh, that's not a wave. And when I came out of the tunnel, I was like, now we ended up winning, and it was close, but I was like, how could anyone as an opponent, I'd always been on the other side. How could anyone this is tough. And I say that with all due respect because it was, in some ways, it was an honor to have the loudest boo and roar that I have ever heard directed at me in Lambeau. I'm like, what is wrong with this? Then I kind of look down, I'm like, purple. But when I walked back out there in July, it was like, this is what it's all about. So as an opponent, you got your hands full.
Well, welcome home.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Favre.